joining here on Zoom as well. Here's the layout of the day. This is what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna start off by going through some of the stuff that we touched on yesterday when I was up in Altoona. My focus is gonna be on not having to rebuttal, getting past objections without getting deep into rebuttals, or without getting into them early. Expectations for the value of the visit and how often you get to the close, and having fun in the job doing those things. Andrew's going to focus after that on emotional intelligence, and connecting with the customer, right? Okay. So the biggest thing today, guys, I think, when you look at the overall training, can you guys hear me on Zoom? All right. I guess not. I don't know.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Sorry.
Okay, cool. So the biggest thing I'd focus on when it comes to today, the thing that I look for is what expectations you have for yourself in the job. It's really difficult to do well when you don't know your expectations. What the hell is
I'm trying out a new look.
Please don't, dude. That is the creepiest shit that I've ever seen. Could you come here real quick? Because I want people to understand why.
What's up, guys?
All right. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm gonna be famous.
I guess. That's and that is distracting like crazy.
He walked going out in the van. I was like, hey, what the hell?
You walked upstairs like that?
What?
You walked up the stairs like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like you have a long beard.
Yeah, I can't grow a beard, so.
Oh, there you
that's
go.
the goal.
There you go. So when it comes to connecting with the customer, guys, setting yourself a standard for an expectation for how far you get in the script is important. I think a lot of times people, hey Joe, how you doing? Making one of the YouTube videos I was talking about. The other day when I was talking about those YouTube videos.
What's that?
Remember the other day when I was talking about those YouTube videos?
Yeah,
You're on right now. So
I'm on.
yep.
What am I saying?
I don't know. Whatever you want. How's it going?
Congratulations, I'll say that. It's amazing team members who you guys, right? How many new people you got? You guys are starting? Yeah. Good. Good luck, guys. Yeah, you guys are doing all the job. Do they know they're number one in the country?
I think so. Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are beating New York, whole state of Colorado, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Boston, Minnesota, name all the big cities, San Francisco. I was just out in San Diego, we're beating San Diego, Los Angeles, all these huge cities, and we're number one. So you guys, these guys back there, Andrew, Paul, the rest of our, what do we call them?
Team managers. Yeah.
Team managers. Amazing. So you guys listen and you follow your scripts. The, what do we call it? Consultative proximity marketers, right?
Sure.
I mean, keep up the great work. Awesome job.
Thank you.
It's pretty impressive. What do you guys think? Central Pennsylvania. I mean, there's like one house between here and Colorado. It's a very spread out geography. It's nowhere near as dense as all the cities that I mentioned. So to do this kind of volume is just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Thank you, Joe. Let's go up for Joe. Thank you.
Don't know. I did this for a year when I was. What is, when you're a senior in high school, it's out.
Some of us.
Yeah, a whole fall, summer, and then going into the
26, yeah.
college, first year of college. It's an amazing job, and we get a lot of rejection. It's a lot of rejection, but guess what I learned? You guys can learn that too. I learned how to handle rejection. Because the world's full of, it, right? There's all kinds of shit that happens, as we all know. You know, it's just family issues, relatives, girlfriends, husbands, wives. Well, I don't see anybody. And there's what? COVID, monkeypox, crazy politicians. If the world's full, the world is full of negativity in politicians. If you can handle it going like this, and somebody slamming the door in your face, not setting an appointment, when you get older, you're gonna survive better and you're gonna be more successful. If you can do this, success is on your doorstep. It was for me, and I've had many other owners like me across the country in some of the cities I mentioned, and they started out doing the same thing. So you never know where you guys are gonna end up. So do a good job. See ya.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Anybody else, anybody else gonna walk in? Yeah, it's kind of a wild start, a little bit of a wild start then. Andrew's the one with the monkeypox.
Won't have us that hard.
There's so many implications to that statement, dude. So if you guys didn't know, because you guys might not have heard, the owner of the company walked in and filibustered the beginning of training. So it's now 11:20. We haven't started yet. So I think I'm just gonna wait a few minutes. I'm just kidding. No, he is right though. When you think about what we've done so far this year, to be over 22 million, now closer to 23 million than 22 million. It's if a lot of you guys don't understand this because you started this year and stuff like that, but to understand what that means. And I use the Southern New England office as an example. And the reason why I use them as an example is because there's actually 2 offices there. Okay. So it's split somewhat like ours, but they're completely separate entities. Their numbers just count together. And you have Cape Cod area, Massachusetts. Who's been to Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard or places like that before? Okay. Only a couple people, very rich places, You like, it's not inexpensive to live. I mean, it's crazy. Rhode Island, while it's a small state, there's a lot of areas, especially around Providence, that's really dense and very rich. A lot of money there. Okay, I think the average home buy is closer to 400,000. Connecticut is very rich and very dense in certain areas. Hartford, you get the areas right outside New York, Westchester, places like that. Very, very dense. All the people that have money from New York, a lot of them live in Connecticut, and a lot of people come from Massachusetts to live in Connecticut as well. So it's a very rich state with not a ton of business, but a ton of people that live there or whatever. And I think like, what is there? Is ESPN there? I know the WWE is there for sure. I see the building every time I drive to Massachusetts. Kind of a cool building. To be at a place like that, 2 separate offices, they have all the experience in the world. Both the managers, they used to work on my team back in Boston back when I first started. And so a lot of experience. There's no reason why, if you just look at all the statistics and whatnot that you think would matter, there's no reason why we should beat them, but we're destroying them by $10 million in sales. You know what I'm saying? And so it's significant, and our interest should be in widening that gap. And I think a big part of I don't expect every person here to care that much about beating this other office or whatever, right? Like if I first start in a company or department and someone's telling me, oh yeah, you're best in the country, and like, cool, whatever, great, but how does that really impact me? And it can impact you in different ways. Ryan and I were just talking about growth to different places. Spencer Lane, I mentioned that about him going out to Arizona, want to go to Arizona. All these different places around the country, you could literally go to any of these offices and, be king there because you operated in this system, in this structure that's been so successful. And so it does have implications, no doubt, for you potentially, if that's what you decide you want to do, which we're always fully open to and whatnot. That being said, what you should care about is if we are beating these companies so much, if we're winning all the time, it allows for a lot more potential. We spent $263,000 last month, right? I just saw it for the first time. When Ryan and I were in a meeting, I saw that at least 263,000. Okay. The majority of that's spent on payroll. That's the majority, probably 85% of our cost is payroll cost. Okay. There's a lot of potential for growth. There's a lot of potential for income growth in the job itself, and you can give yourself a raise. It's a great way to enter into the business. We have people moving into different departments. Pretty soon we'll expand beyond just sales and management in the department, and the potential for install will expand in different other roles as well. So there's it's really becoming the farm system, and I hate to say it that way, but for the department, for the company. And so there's a lot of ability to grow from this role. And so you have to take that experience, utilize your time here well, and understand there's not many jobs that you can grow your income at, right? If I worked for Sheets during COVID and I got paid, $18 an hour instead of my normal $15 an hour, that's now going back down. A lot of jobs are paying less now than they were 6 months ago. You have the ability to grow your income, yourself, and to be responsible for that. So there's a lot of benefits to that. That being said, I'm looking at this job and I'm going, man, I remember being on the road every day again for 7 years. It's hot out in the summertime. It's cold in the wintertime. Sometimes if I'm having a tough day, it's not a fun job. My interest in doing the job was always in making it fun so that it paid off in multiple ways for me. I knew pretty quickly, like within the first 6 months, that I was going to be doing some type of job like this for the rest of my life because of my past and because of the fact that my options, I had limited myself significantly, getting kicked out of high school when I was 16, crippling drug addiction, getting arrested for felony, violent felonies, getting into trouble for different things. Those things were going to impact my life severely. And so if I found something that I needed to sort of have loyalty to the role so that I could get better at it. And when I found a niche job like this, when you think about it, it's a 1 in a billion chance to find something like this for someone like me. I recognize the opportunity to grow my income significantly, and that's why I've stuck with it for so long. Yesterday, Mo had asked me, during the pandemic, you were making, a lot less than you typically made. You had to take up from your retirement, all these different things. You didn't even know if your job was going to come back or not. Why did you stick with it? And Andrew and I talked about it all the time. Maybe it's just time to leave. Maybe it's time to leave this kind of job. Other companies are canvassing right now. Why not just go do that? But what I kept coming back to was the understanding that this company is willing to invest in the people that work here, and especially in jobs like this where other companies are not willing to invest. And so it was that kept me with the company for so long. And the ability to be able to sort of operate, and I don't mean like crazy, but operate how I wanted to. I get fired in 3 weeks if I work for corporate. I almost went to go work for corporate in 2016. So 6 years ago. So I almost went to go work for corporate. They just took taking forever on my background check, and then I got offered the job down here. I would have been gone in a month, dude. I would have said something stupid and I would have got fired. Like, let's just face it, probably 10 times over. Maybe not right away, but definitely eventually. I don't know if Jason Ryan can make it, then maybe I could make it too. So point is, guys, is that in this job and in this department, you can have fun doing the job, but if you can't figure out how to have fun doing the job, then it becomes extremely difficult to do the job. And so yesterday, what we were going over, and what I wanted to really talk about today was, how do you get to a point where you don't feel like you're under constant pressure to rebuttal and argue with customers, because that is not going to get you anything. It's not going to make you good at the job, and it's not going to make it fun for you, So I want to tell you a story quick. One time, back in, I don't know what fucking year it was, dude, it's 2009, I guess. Yeah, 2009. So a lot of years ago. How old who's the youngest person in this department? Okay, how old were you in 2009 then? Damn, that's crazy. 6. Damn, that's crazy. That's absolutely nuts, dude. So when you were 6 years old, I was dating this girl. Her name was Sabrina, and we would fight all the time. And we drink and fight, not like physically fight, just get in fights. And finally, we had kind of had it with each other, whatever. We broke up. I was on my way into work. We were on the phone. And it was just like we were both done. I know I was done for sure. So I get into work and I'm in a really shitty mood. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not all there. My mind's not right. I didn't feel good about the day. Nothing was good about it, right? And so I get on the road. I remember exactly where we were. We're out in Salem. So it's a little bit easier to remember, I guess. And I remember starting the day off having this shitty look on my face, like one of those days that's so bad that you can tell that you look like an asshole because of how bad of a day you're having. I knew it. I'm talking to customers and I could see their reaction to me was not positive. So at the time, our schedule was a lot different. We would go from 12 to 9. And so we'd start at 12 and we'd end knocking at 9. It was a long schedule, but we'd have a break in the middle. And so we get on break and my manager pulls me aside and he's like, dude, what's your problem? And I tell him what's up or whatever. And he's like, okay, so if you're broke and single, is that going to make it, better or worse for you? You know what I'm saying? Like either way, you don't want to get back with this girl, right? You're not going to talk to her again. No. Okay, cool. So either way, then would you rather be broke and miserable or would you rather be, would you rather have income and be miserable, I guess, maybe less miserable, right? And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I mean, it doesn't make sense for me to transfer this negativity here. I have a perfect job where I don't have to focus on, I remember working machinery and having nothing, only my thoughts all the time. Nobody to talk to, just my own thoughts all the time. Now I'm talking to customers. I really don't have to focus on the anger that I have for this situation and stuff like that. So I remember going out there and forcing a smile. And I remember specifically like having to force it. And I remember doing the knock that I always do on doors that most of you guys do, that thing. And I remember the customer coming out, this lady, probably around 40 years old. And she comes out, biggest smile on her face. And she goes, oh my God, I thought you were my dad. That's how he knocks, this and that. And she's real happy. And I remember I set her up for an appointment. And she says to me at the end, you seem so positive. You seem so happy. It's great. And I just remember thinking like, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? But I sent 3 more leads that day. It ended up being a great day. And, by the next day I had really like let go of all problems or whatever. You don't realize how insignificant some things can be in the scheme of things. You know what I'm saying? In the scheme of things, most things, not everything, but most things are relatively simple, right? And they're very easy to get rid of. Most feelings, don't feel like that when they're happening, but it's very easy to get yourself back in a better mood. You know what I'm saying? I've gone through a lot of different things in my life and a lot of different loss. And I remember back in 2018, and Andrew remembers this too. We were about to head out to Dallas and we had this trip set up and stuff like that. And my friend got killed. And I went out to Massachusetts, my best friend. I went out to Massachusetts. We did a benefit. I ended up crashing my car out there. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Or somebody crashed into me, a drunk driver. And I had to rent a car, get back here. We flew out to Dallas. It was a crazy couple days. We flew it on Monday. Sunday was that benefit. I was up in Boston. So it was a crazy couple days, but I remember thinking like that pain that I'm dealing with at that time, that's never going to go away. It still comes back, but it went away pretty quickly, right? And so most feelings you can get rid of, but only if you're operating in a positive structure, right? That's kind of my point. If you're in a job where you're just dealing with your thoughts all day and you're not interacting with customers in a positive way, then it gets very easy to make it difficult on yourself to change your attitude, right? The benefit in this job is that if you have a standard for yourself, then you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to deal with that, right? So here's the standard that I would work off of, guys, when it comes to customer interaction, okay? And we know this, you guys have heard this before, we've talked about it. 85% of the time. Hold on, the general manager's called me. One second. Hey, Linda, how you doing? I do. I'm in the middle of a training right now, but I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have Andrew start his part real quick. Can you do a little bit of yours real quick, Andrew, and then I
Sure.
just need a couple minutes? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Excellent. This
It's a
has been
great
a hell of a
segue.
training. All
it's a
right.
good segue.
All right. Yeah, I'll be out in 2 minutes. No, it's fine. I'll be out in 2 minutes. Less than that. All right, man. All right, I'll be right back. 85% of the time or more, you should get past the value of the visit. Okay, 85% of the time or more, you should get past the value of the visit. Andrew's going to take over here for a minute or two, and then I'll be back. You can start then.
Yeah.
All right. Here, do you want me to mute myself here and?
No, because you could just move the microphone right behind the box.
It's fine.
No.
You'll be fine. I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
I promise you it's gonna happen, so. Sounds good. So this is actually kind of funny. So yesterday. At the end of the day, after we're done with training, so what time is that, like 5 o'clock? At 5:30, Paul comes in, he's like, by the way, I need you to do some of training tomorrow. So I have like nothing prepared. I have no idea what I'm gonna say. And then to make matters even worse, it's like, hey, by the way, we're gonna stop what we're doing right now and you're just gonna take over. How's that sound? So. Funny enough, it kind of goes into what I had thought on the fly, what we can talk about today. Emotional intelligence. Yeah. Now I know like anyone that's like talked to Tony, especially to get an interview here, one of the questions that he always asks. Me personally, I think it's a stupid question. I don't know has anyone ever said no to the question? Yeah.
Well.
Then I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
He said, oh, you mean intelligence? I'm not really that.
So the question that Tony asked, and I get it, I understand, right? It sets the tone and the idea of like what we're looking for, right? Really, the response to the question really isn't the important part. It's more of like getting that individual who's looking for employment an idea of like what we're all about, right? And the question is, what is it, Tony?
We're looking for people who have good people skills, also a high amount of emotional intelligence. Is that
Right.
Something to consider yourself good at.
Right. Now, I can't imagine anybody, I guess, except for that one super honest individual saying, no, I'm not that bright, right? But with that being said, emotional intelligence, right? I'm sure you've heard that at some point before, that idea of being emotionally intelligent. Does anybody here have any idea what the fuck that means? Like,
No.
any idea?
Learn how to read emotions.
Knowing how to read emotions, okay, Kyle? So if somebody's dealing with issues in their personal life, how to deal with that in an emotional way?
Well, more of a, how to solve the issue.
So you're trying to be empathetic? Yeah. Okay. Scotty, too hotty?
How to read people and react based off of not only their tone and how they're like interacting with you, but like how they interact as well, to be able to kind of like mirror them.
Alejandro?
Understanding the point of view and where they're coming from, and how to mimic that into understanding.
So that's the interesting thing when it comes to emotional intelligence. Who here considers themselves to be emotionally intelligent? Okay. I see. All right. At least you're honest. Emotional intelligence, it's a very generalized term. There's a lot of different components that go into it. And a lot of the ways in which you can develop emotional intelligence and how that can actually affect your job. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about it, and it can affect your job in 1,000 different ways. So when you think of emotional intelligence, right? What comes to mind? Do you see yourself dealing with the customer in an emotionally intelligent way, or do you see yourself, is this more of a concept for when you're in the van dealing with your team?
Both.
Is that Crooksy?
Yeah.
Both? I would agree. And that's-
I
what's
think
that?
it's probably more with the customer for emotional intelligence that you're using. Just cause like probably you're not as like professional, like with your coworkers compared to the people you're talking to at the door.
Okay. So here's the thing, when it comes to emotional intelligence. You end up using it all the time, all the time. And the way in which your mood is, and that's why I wasn't joking when Paul was like, oh, I gotta take a minute out, real quick, can you take over? I'm like, this is actually not a bad segue, because everything that he just said. Leading up to, trying to pitch to customers without having to use rebuttals all the time. All of that has everything to do with how emotionally intelligent you actually are. The benefit is you can develop emotional intelligence, you can get better at it, right? So the first thing when it comes to emotional intelligence, right? One of the first things that you need to be aware of is your own self-awareness, right? Being able to be honest about your strengths, understand where you're at when it comes to your weaknesses, and then being very truthful and honest with yourself about what are your immediate and long-term desires are. What are you looking to accomplish? What drives you? Once you're able to kind of put those into perspective, right? How do you harness those strengths? How do you work on those weaknesses? And then what goals are you going to set so you can, achieve whatever your desired outcome is? So when I first started, I'll never forget it, man. Sitting right across this table actually with Paul. And before this, about a year before I moved back to PA, because what happened was this, right? So I met my wife. My wife is my mother's best friend, who sadly has since passed from cancer, but her best friend, her kids knew my wife. And so growing up, I was always around them, that we were acquaintances at best. And one thing leads to another, you know how that shit goes. And so then I end up leaving, messing around, having too much fun. I end up homeless in Albany, which, by the way, Albany sucks to be homeless at. You have the financial district, which is immaculate. There's not a piece of filth on the ground. And then you walk literally 100 feet in the opposite direction, right underneath the train tracks. Always seems to be train tracks, the dividing line. You go right underneath the train tracks, and it's straight crackhead ghetto. That was my favorite part. The other spot was kind of uncomfortable to be in. But from there, I end up traveling back. I ended up doing hospitality. I had my real estate license. I was a barber. And so I remember coming in here and same kind of mentality. I knew exactly what I wanted, right? And when I saw, okay, this is your avenue for growth. This is what you can do. This is what you can make here. I took that very seriously. And I remember making a decision. This is exactly what I want, right? The first thing though is I remember my very first day out, and anybody that's had training with me, which I'm sure everybody here has had at some point in time, how I started. Still to this day, I've never seen anybody have a worse first door than myself. I remember freezing up. I called myself by the wrong name. I said, my name is Anderson. Your window's broken. And then I just proceeded to rub this guy's window for about 15 seconds in complete silence. And it was a very uncomfortable thing. And I remember being so uncomfortable that the walk away, because the guy told me, he's either get off my property, I'm going to beat the piss out of you. And that makes total sense. I understand why. But when I was walking away, my first thing was I have no idea why I thought I could do this. This shit is crazy. I'm going to have to quit. There's definitely no way I can do this. So then I remember on my way home thinking about this. What am I supposed to tell all these people that I just lied to? I mean, that I told that, there's going to be so much opportunity. I'm going to make all this money. What am I supposed to say? And so I did the only reasonable thing and I lied, right? That makes sense. I was like, yeah, I'm the greatest trainee that they've ever seen. I cannot wait to go back tomorrow. So then I committed myself. I'm like, this is what people expect of me, so I'm going to have to do it. Now, whether that was good motivation or not, that's what got me to stick and stay. I did not want to be a liar. Right? But the first thing that I had to really be honest with myself was I inflated myself way too much. And I had to realize, okay, these are some of my strengths. These are the things that I'm good at. I've always been decent with dealing with people, right? But you know, this is what I need work on. This is what I need work on. I have a terrible memory. For me, getting down the script and the rebuttals was a fucking nightmare. I really need to stop cursing. It's going on YouTube. Was a huge nightmare, right? It took me forever to get these things down. And so the first step in emotional intelligence is being very self-aware, understanding and being honest exactly with where you're at. There's no possible way for you guys to get any better than what you are right here, right now, unless you're honest with yourself and say, okay, I am pretty decent at this. This is definitely something that I do need to work on. And that was a really hard pill for me to swallow, because in everything that I've ever done, I always want to be the absolute best. Anytime I take second place, man, I'm a sore loser. I will tell you that up front. I hate losing. And so in the training class, I was the third best out of 4. That was a very difficult pill to swallow. And so I remember my very first week out, I set a lead a day. But for my first 3 weeks, I don't think I even made commission, because all my leads that I set were canceling. But here's the thing. When it comes to self-awareness, I was honest with it. I understood that. I knew that was the case. However, the goals that I had set, that's what I was focused on. So immediately my mind went to, okay, in order to achieve what I want to achieve, this is the reality in which I live. What do I need to do to fix this problem? It wasn't, woe is me, I suck, this is so terrible, this is not for me. No, my mind was made up. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the best at this. Nobody can tell me otherwise. This is the problem that's in front of me. How do I fix it? So the first step when it comes to emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Now, what's that going to look like for you guys in your own daily lives? I have no idea. That's on you to answer. I can probably help you with that. I can look at your numbers and tell you exactly where you're going wrong in the script and everything like that. But how many times have someone like myself, like Paul, someone like one of your managers or people that are in West, North, whatever, how many times has somebody walked with you, given you advice, giving you suggestions, and then you do what with it? Nothing. How often has that happened? Right? I'm sure quite often, right? Again, self-awareness, be honest. It's all right. Because the only way you can continuously get better is first understand with where you're at, right? So that's how it can look in your own, you know. So that's the one thing that in terms of like you yourself, when you're out in the field, what does that look like? Ask yourself that question, really understand what it is, right? Do you even know what your issues are? Do you have an idea, right? Then same kind of thought process. What does that look like when you're in the van? Right? Because emotional intelligence, it's manyfold, man. It doesn't just have to be with the customer. It doesn't just have to be with your own personal numbers and stuff like that. It could also be with the individuals around you, right? And so what does that look like for you when you're in your van dealing with your fellow employees, essentially your brothers in arms, stuff like that, right? Am I somebody that's uplifting the van? Am I being encouraging, right? What are my strengths when it comes to camaraderie? What are my weaknesses? Am I somebody that just sits in the back with headphones in and I just zone out? Does that really make the van that much better? Probably not, right? Am I somebody that comes in the van and the first thing I'm trying to find is what can I blame that gets the focus off myself? If that's the case, understand that's kind of like a cancerous attitude, an idea. It's going to affect somebody else. You're going to bring somebody else down with you. Understand that. So first and foremost, being self-aware, understanding exactly with where you're at. And not just weaknesses too, your strengths, right? What positive thing do I bring to this team? How can I do more of that? how can I magnify that? How can I be more help to more people with whatever it is that you're really, really good at? Then the second thing would be like self-regulation, right? So again, I wrote this last night and then a little bit this morning, so this definitely does take some discipline when it comes to self-regulation, right? However, if you're able to kind of control your own impulses, right, and not just react, what it'll enable you to do is kind of react, embrace, and adapt, which is most important. Adapt to change. And so, again, first and foremost, when it comes to being able to be adaptable, when it comes to like your own team, the team is kind of like its own living thing, man. People have their own personal lives that things, you know, maybe they don't mean to, but some people bring things into the office that maybe shouldn't be, but they, you know, they're going through maybe a tougher time than usual, right? How do you adapt to those things that are constantly changing? Are you somebody that's able to recognize that and guard your own self, right? So you can stay away from anything like that. Same thing with excuses, right? Those things are always changing. Are you able to kind of meet those things head on? And then when it comes to actually dealing with more so than just your team and then the actual customers, not reacting in a reactionary way, which I think Paul, that's his biggest thing that he's going to be going over today, is being more than just reactionary. So how, you know, when you're able to just kind of have a level head and control yourself, what that affords you the ability to do, most importantly, is to just shut up and listen for a second, right? Listen so you can respond accordingly, right? Does that make sense? And the third thing, and I know Kyle, you had touched on this before, right? Empathy. So being aware and considerate of somebody else and their feelings. And what do you think that kind of gives you a leg up on? I mean, how many times have you guys, I'm sure millions, right? How many times somebody said to you, oh yeah, we just moved in? No one's had that, somebody say that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? So what's the first thing that you say back?
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Where you from?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and then he sits down and has dinner with him. Yeah, I know your style. Oh, dude, I walked with him the other day. He was like a full course meal, candlesticks and everything. Yeah. No, dude, it was a joke.
Oh,
Yeah, but no, being empathetic, right? And that doesn't necessarily just have to mean like, oh, this guy's going through a tough time. Let me embrace my brother, right? No, it has a lot more than just like, hey, this guy's going through a tough time. What can I say to like let him know? Whatever. It could be on something simple like, yeah, hey, we just moved in. Oh, well, congratulations. That's awesome. This is your beautiful home. Right? Those small things, right, that allows the customer to know and to understand that you're not just some robot saying like some scripted response. You're being genuine, right? You actually understand from where they're coming from. The other thing too that gives you the ability to do is when you can really stop for a second and listen and understand. It's a very human thing to then just automatically think of a time in which something like that has occurred with me when I moved, how I felt during that transition. It was a really exciting time, right? And so that gives me something else that I can connect with the customer on. If I so choose, right? That's my choice. I can go a little bit deeper with this. It could be something more than just, oh yeah, congrats, nice. Okay, anyway, by the way, so this, right? That's something I can choose. Why? Well, because I put myself in that position because I was able to just stop, listen, and empathize and understand, okay, this is where they're at. This is what they just had gone through. And the fourth one is motivation. Right? So you must have a passion for achieving your goals. And they need to be driven not by rewards such as money. They can be, right? That can definitely be like a secondary, tertiary, definitely like, trust me. I wanted to work here and I wanted to do well. Why? Well, because I wanted to make as much money as I possibly could, right? But it needs to be more than that. I mean, it can't, that money cannot just be the one, the only thing. Okay? It has to be something that's like I look at it as like an accomplishment, something that I achieved based by my own hard work. So when I came here, yes, I wanted to grow, right? I wanted to make money, right? I'm sure that everybody started here, right? One of the first things that I say to people in the interview is like, look, understand this. People look at the amount that they can make and how far they can grow. And they're like, hell yeah, man, sign me up. Let's do this. And then when rubber meets the road, it's a different story. Why? Well, because money, the feelings about money and this and stuff like that is very easily transferred, not thought about. You can make excuses. I can make this money somewhere else. Maybe I won't make as much, but there's still option B and option C. But something that cannot be taken from you is when you actually set your mind to something, create actual goals, and set out to do the work in order to achieve whatever goals they may be. Right? So maybe you're just getting here and you haven't even really thought about, hey, well, I want to go into sales by 9 months from now. I'll tell you, good luck, right? But with that being said, what comes before that? First, I want to learn this script, right? That's my first goal. I want to be the best at learning this script. Okay, and then I want to be the best at applying this script and the system behind it. Okay, what else, right? For those that have been here for a little while, what are the things that you're looking forward to? What are the things that you want? Truly, truly want, and then make that decision. So like, I remember I was here, the first thing I said to Paul in the interview was, oh, in 6 months, man, I'll take your job, man, like being an ass, right? And he's like, yeah, good luck, dude. And obviously that did not happen. Thank God. For all of your sakes, thank God. But in reality, so after 2 months, I was like, okay, I want to be a team lead. And at the time, things had turned into kind of a situation where that was maybe a possibility, right? But somebody else got it instead of me. This guy, remember James?
Yeah.
So
Is that
James,
his name? I forgot his
yeah, he
name.
fell asleep. Remember that?
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of Tom.
No. Tom, yeah.
Yeah.
So James, now at this point in time, I could have been like, oh man, well, that's crazy. I do better than James. I deserve it. No. Everything in which I did set against the whole idea and the goal of like, this is where I want to go. None of that stuff mattered. The fact that, okay, where I started, maybe I had a little bit of a cancellation rate problem. That's not that big of a deal in the scope of the grand scheme of things. That's just a little thing that I need to work on to get to where I need to go. Not a big deal. And that's the way in which I looked at everything. Why? Because I was so motivated to succeed and get to the next level. It did not matter what happened and came in front of me. I looked at it as just, okay, this is just another challenge that I need to overcome. Why? Because not only will I grow from that experience, but it'll make me look that much better, right? If I can sit and get through it, and the same thing happens on a day-by-day basis, right? The thing that I tell people in training all the time is understanding that you don't have to live and die at every single door. Every single door that you get to is its completely different and new opportunity in and of itself, right? And so, yeah, I try as far as I possibly can at this door, and then it doesn't go my way. At least I know I left everything else out there. I got as far as I possibly could go. I kept trying and trying and trying. It didn't work out, and that's okay, because you know what? Your neighbor, he's looking just as settable as you are. And that was my mindset. And then last but not least, obviously, social skills. Now, I'm sure we all think that we have pretty good social skills. But these are things that encompass all of those previous, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, encompasses all of that, puts it together. And it's more than just being charming. It's more than just being friendly, right? And it's the same idea, applies to the customer. If I just try and just like smile and wink at every single, homeowner that I come across, that's not going to do much for me. It's more than just being charming, friendly. I'm sure we can all do that when we need to or when it suits us, right? But it's more than that. It's about actively listening to the customer, understanding exactly where they're at, right? Moving with them through this conversation, not just talking at them. So the biggest thing too, when you're able to do that and how it transcends just your customer relations aspect, but when you can actually do that with your teammates and not just the people that have been here with you for the last 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, whatever, but with individuals that are just, coming here and they're not really sure what to expect. They've never done something like this before, just like you had no idea what to expect because you've never done something like this before, right? And they're looking for people to kind of take them under their wing and say, hey man, look, no big deal, not the end of the world. This is how we do things. This is the right way. This is not suggested, to say the least, right? And being like a unified front when it comes to that, right? Like think about how detrimental it could be when somebody who's newer, Nate comes along and says, hey, this is the way we do things. Nice to meet you. Yeah. And then let's say me on the side of my mouth, I sit with them in the van for the next week in the back with my earbuds in, just talking shit or talking crap.
I'm very small, like 8 times.
I know, I'm trying. But think about how detrimental that can be. And then think about that same kind of attitude. I tell people all the time, this is very attitude based. And when you actually have a care in developing those relationships, right? Whether it's with your teammates or the customers at the door, right? When you actually care about, okay, where they're at, what they're saying, and you have that respond accordingly, right? That'll show and motivate other people to do the same thing. So there's some ways that you can actually increase some of that emotional intelligence. So first and foremost, obviously, be motivated. So if you're sitting right here and be like, well, how do I do that? I don't know what to tell you, right? It's making a decision, right? It's making a decision, finding out, okay, what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you want, that desire. Okay, be honest with yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you need to do in order to actually work on those problems? Actually give it intention, man. Like really, really try. Okay, I'm struggling with getting through to the value, getting at the end of the value. Okay, what do I need to do? I'll tell you, if you promise me, I'll actually try. So actually being willing to put those things into practice, applying those things, those principles. The amount of training that's been done over the last 3 weeks, man, my first year, I feel like there was more training in the last 3 weeks than my first year here, right? You guys have a lot of the information. It's about, are you putting it into practice or not? It's that simple, literally that simple. The rules don't change after you've been here for two months, right? Customers don't just happenly, they start responding differently, right? The script doesn't hit differently after 2 months of being here, after 3 months of being here, after a year of being here. So what did? You did. For better or for worse. So motivation. Finding what it is that you want and then putting those things into practice to get there. Practice positive thinking, ways to maintain a positive attitude. Now, this is something, if you were to tell me this like a couple of years ago, I'd be like, positive thinking, that's a sham. It's a sham. But over the years, I kind of realized that what I do practice, I always practice looking for the silver lining in whatever it is that I'm being either tasked to do or some type of like trial, tribulation, whatever, right? So understanding, realizing, okay, there's silver linings in anything and everything. And then whatever it is, something that kind of gets you going, whether it's like, if Cole was here, I'm sure a good breakfast gets him going, right? for me, it's just like in anything and everything that comes my way, it's always about what can I learn from this experience? Little people. Right. What can I get out of this experience that's gonna help me be better than I was when I first entered this? Right? That's the way in which I look at it. Every time I'm met with some, like, dude, when I first got on the road, I had no idea what windows even were. They're like, oh, those are the things with that you could see through, right? In homes. Like, yeah, Andrew, that's it. Good job, dude. So I went out there, I would Google half this stuff. Right? Because I wanted to, because I wanted to know more. And then I think the two last things I think are probably the most important out of anything and everything that you could possibly do when it comes to doing our job and doing our job effectively. So utilizing active listening skills. So how many times have you heard somebody say not interested, right? 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and they're like, you know what? This sounds like a really good idea. Let's do this. Ever happened to anybody?
A couple times.
Couple times. Has anyone ever said to you like, yeah, I'm not really in the market right now for new windows, and then they end up setting up all the time? Has anyone ever told you, I'm definitely not doing this, and then 3 days later they buy like $50,000 worth of windows? So how is something like that possible?
People are weak.
No, it's because look, at the end of the day, I guarantee you that 99% of the people that tell you not interested to your face, if I would go there the next day with free windows, they would absolutely take those free windows. Why? Well, it's because it's not that they don't want something newer, better for their home. It has everything to do with whatever their personal fear, excuse, objection, whatever it is. Now, the script does a very good job of coaxing, those real objections out. That's the whole entire reason, right? We say, may I make a suggestion? That should get you your very non-specific, not interested, right? You run through the value, ask, would this be helpful? We're not asking if they're going to be interested, right? We're asking if this would be helpful. Sir, based on the issues you're dealing with and what we can provide, you cannot tell me that this would at least be helpful. And so, of course, they can see, well, yeah, duh, of course this would be helpful. However, they just said not interested before, so they need to defend their position. And how they're going to do that? Now they're going to get specific with you and tell you why they're not interested. So it's in moments like those, right? When active listening, not reacting on the first objection that you get, right? And kind of showing your hand, actually listening and seeing, okay, where exactly is this person at? I cannot tell you how many times somebody has said not interested, but 30 seconds before they talked about how they just redid their kitchen. This guy's not interested. He's worried about more financial obligations. How do I know that? Well, because I listened to what he had said 30 seconds prior, right? So when it comes to active listening, you want to be able to listen for points of pain or points of clarity, right? Things in which this person is either telling you something, whether, yeah, we just redid our kitchen, we just moved in, right? Oh, I don't know, we got to take the kids to baseball practice, right? That's what's going to help me determine what am I going to say that is going to be most persuasive to this individual. If somebody tells me, oh yeah, well, I'm not interested. Yeah, me and my wife, we work opposite schedules. Do you think me saying, well, sir, very few of our customers have the money set aside for new windows? No, he would look at me like I was a moron. Why? Well, because I'm clearly not listening to what he's saying. Now, obviously, I'm giving you the most common sense of examples, right? But these types of things happen every single day with every single interaction that you are dealing with, for the most part, right? And so when you can stop thinking, and that's, I mean, in training, I tell the guys all the time, you need to know this stuff so well, like the back of your hand. Why? Not because you pitching this like a robot verbatim is going to make you better. No, it's so that the script in and of itself, the rebuttals right that becomes reflex. So you don't have to think about them. So what? So you can listen to the customer and actually hear what it is that they are saying to you. Because the only way that you are going to respond accordingly and appropriately is if you know exactly where it is that they are. And so there's a lot of elements that go into that. So listening for points of clarity or pain, instead of just waiting for your turn to speak, right? If you're at a point where you're on like, what you used to call it, auto tune. If you're at a point when you're on, it's autopilot or auto tune, and you're just waiting for yourself to speak. Why? Well, because, he said not interested, therefore it's, I didn't expect to catch on the day you're ready to replace me, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? Then you're not really doing the job in the most, number one, effective way possible, but number two, in the most fun way possible. There's so much interest and intrigue to be had when you can actually just stop thinking for a second and listen, right? So you want to make sure you understand what is being said before responding. Understand what they're saying before you just react. And then pay attention to the details. Even the nonverbal ones, like you were talking about, Scott, right? Even the nonverbal details. Conversation, it will prevent misunderstandings, and it will definitely help you to respond properly and respectfully. And then I think this one, most importantly, because I think a lot of people confuse the two, but everyone is always afraid of being too aggressive, right? That's everyone's like fear, like, oh, I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be too aggressive. And I agree with you. You don't want to, right? But there is a flip side negative to that as well, and that's being too passive, right? And so finding that middle ground, what is that? Where is that middle ground? Where does that live? And it's in being assertive. Being assertive with what you say, right? Respectfully explaining your points of opinion or your points of, professional knowledge and experience, right? You shouldn't feel bad or guilty for knowing what you see and for knowing what you're talking about. Nobody should ever make you feel that way. So don't. Because quite honestly, that's on you. Nobody can make you feel that way. That's your choice. But the best way to go about it, if you want to still direct the respect of others, right? And if you want to build trust without coming across as too aggressive or too passive, be assertive with your language, with what you're saying, right? Does that make sense to everyone?
Thank God it was 15 minutes. Oh, man.
I know.
All right, let's go for Andrew. Thank you. Derek had his hand up. I guess he's not on it anymore. Derek had his little yellow hand up, but
Sorry, Derek.
he's not. I don't know what happened. He's not on it. Let's take a quick, 3-minute break, guys. And then we're gonna get back started again. The auto tune thing too. Fuck you. Well, it's funny because I went to go write down a word that you had said wrong. So I'm like, he would have called me out on that. So I'm gonna call him on that. And then I couldn't open the marker because I loaded all.
What was the word? Your number?
Hold on. Guys, we're gonna get started again. I'm gonna make this as quick as possible too. I don't got a ton to go over. Andrew covered some of it. Chase, can you hit that door? Real quick? Sorry. All right, we're gonna get started again though. Again, I'm not gonna be long. I wish Andrew was in the room because I wanted to, there's a couple notes that I took that I wanted to, every time that I misspeak, he makes sure that he points it out. So I just thought it was funny that he was objectifying customers. He said that if you're not settable, then your neighbor's much more settable. Why, what just happened? Logged off. All right, so, and I hope you guys are taking notes, because even I get some notes down here, and I walked in later to that. But I took down some notes even for that as well. The couple things that I took down, the thing I want to mention first, and we did just lose connection to Altoona. It'll be back. It's taped if not. So the things that I wanted to touch on from what Andrew was saying, the first thing was when it comes to motivation, you know, it's funny to me. So and in this job, I mean, over the course of the last 13 years, I don't know how many people that I've interviewed. I know it's been tons of people all over the country for this job, from here to San Francisco to Colorado to, Connecticut and Boston, all over the place. And the number one thing I'd say that is brought up when it comes to motivation, you know, because I ask every person, what is their motivation? What are they looking for in a company? What are they looking for in a job? The number one thing that is brought up consistently is growth. That's like the number one overall thing that's brought up, you know. I mean, money's brought up, schedule can be brought up. The number one thing that's brought up is growth. And so people in the interview process are interested in the idea of growth and moving up in the company. And then what you see is, what you notice is, and it's unfortunate in a way, is that for some people, they stick to that. They come up with goals. They have a list of things they want. They figure it out pretty quickly what they want to do. And then they grow. Other people, they don't figure it out quickly. And I respect that, but they take their time, but they're genuine in their want for growth. So they make sure they do everything right up until they decide what they want to do. And then they go for it. You know what I'm saying? But some people come into the job and really quickly their motivation gets off of growth and it gets onto whatever negative thing it can pop onto. Now, to me, I look at it as if growth is your number one objective, then you're gonna get everything else. Everything else is gonna fall in line. So even if you don't know what exactly you want to do, Altoona's connecting again now. Even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, growth is a great standard to kind of create for yourself, right? I was talking to Ryan earlier, and we were talking about this, and he had come to his one-on-one very prepared with a list of questions and about what he wants to do and what the expectation is and stuff like that. When you have that laid out for you, when you do that yourself, especially, it's different when somebody lays it out for you. It creates a level of accountability for you, you know. And so my suggestion would be for everybody, figure out what you want. This company fits a lot of people, you know, and there's a lot of opportunities. There's opportunities that will come up in the next 6 months that aren't even available right now, that we don't even know about right now, you know, because the level of growth the company is going through and has gone through. When I started just in this office, it was something like 50 employees. Now there's like 280, you know, and so you see there's a lot of significant growth, a lot of positions open up and whatnot. On that, I wrote down, something that I want to expand upon that Andrew had mentioned, which was trusting in the process. And he mentioned it in a different way. Still think you're a little bit salty about the James thing. The idea of understanding that there's like a reason behind everything. So for example, back up in Boston, whenever before I went for a management role, before I voiced my need for growth, or actually it was a need for sorry. There's way too much going on right now for me to do this. I can't operate this way. This has been really helpful to me. Every time I start to speak, something happens. I'm waiting for another call and then I'll have to leave again. So I remember being up in Boston, and I remember the first couple people that moved into management, I knew a lot more about them than probably, my boss did at the time. And so in my mind, I'm going, these people don't deserve it. I'm not even saying I deserve it, but these people definitely don't. And, it got to me a little bit, but, I think the benefit that I had was, again, I was not in a position to leave, or I probably would have, you know what I'm saying, at the time, especially watching, there was two people that grew that I really was like, these people aren't going to do well in this job. But what I recognize now, and what I consistently recognize is thank God I did not move up into a management role whenever those roles were available, because I definitely would not be with the company. Wayne, who was my boss at the time, he might not have recognized that those people were not right for that job, but I'm glad he recognized that I wasn't right for that job at the time. There's a process that goes on. And, we've gone over this before, but the average company moves employees up. The average employee moves up in 3 years. 3 years is the average time for a first step of growth in a company, right? And we looked this up a couple months ago. If some of you guys remember that, 3 years was the average. Okay. That's not the average here. The average here is less than a year. Okay. And so you benefit from that, but you have to sort of trust the process. Because the process does weed out people that are not right for the jobs. And we've gone over this before, but during COVID, there was 3 people that immediately wanted to move into sales that, that thought that they deserved it. And one of the people did move up. The other 2 people, one, got fired. The other person did not get the sales position and eventually left the company. And it was the right decision. If you look at these guys now, the guy who moved into sales is top 5 in the company, all the time, is for the year, is doing a great job, Adam Chubb. And the 2 people that are not with the company anymore, definitely would not have done well in that role. Definitely would not have done well in that role. And so the process works, the majority of the time. So you got to trust the process. If Andrew had moved into a management role 3 months before he did, or 2 months or whenever before he did, then he might not be here with the company anymore. You know what I'm saying? There's a chance that it wouldn't have been the right time and things wouldn't have went the right way. And so there's a reason for everything. And we're very upfront with the reasons typically why we do things. And that's good. You don't find that in a lot of places. But I'll tell you what you need to do. I mean, consistency is the most important thing for any of the jobs we have available here. That's the most important thing, right? I would think about it this way, right? If let's say that I go out there for a month and I just go crazy and I get, 50 demos in that month, I'm like, ridiculous, the best that's ever happened, but I can't keep that consistent. And the next month I end up doing extremely poorly, or I go on some drug and alcohol binge or whatever, and I miss like 3 weeks of work. I clearly wasn't the right person to move into like a management role. You don't want me teaching other people. That's for sure. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a reason why consistency is important. And that consistency stretches beyond scripting. And it stretches to, showing up to work, putting in extra effort. When Ryan and I were talking earlier, I mentioned to him that, the benefit of doing callbacks and, working Saturdays, stuff like that, is that you're showing people what the best way to make money is, the best way to do well is. And that means a lot. That's something that not everybody has. It gives you a leg up definitely on other people. Empathy was mentioned, motivation was mentioned. All that stuff is great and super important and does speak directly to what we're going to talk about next. So I'm glad that we went through that first, actually, because again, the endpoint goal there is 85% of the time you should be through the value of the visit. Okay. And if 85 to 90% of the time you're through the value of the visit, then you're going to win a lot more often. So I'm going to ask you guys this question, and in Altoona, they were really honest with me, but I also didn't preempt it with a lot of stuff. I was asking, what percentage of time do you get past the value of the visit? And I started at 10%, and everybody kind of raised their hand there. 20%, a couple people's hands were actually down at 20%. 30% more were down, 50% more were down. And then by 80%, all but like one person's hand was down. So I'm going to ask you guys the same question. How many people, please raise your hand if you cross this threshold, and just guesstimate, get past the value of the visit 10% of the time?
Of the people that you talk to, or of every?
Of course, the people that you talk to, yeah.
I didn't know of every house.
No, people that you talk to, man. It's 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60, 70, 80. Okay. So only a few people feel themselves like they get past the value of the visit 80% of the time, right? you're gonna optimally win, a lot more. If you're getting past that part, right? We recognize that, right? That's the most important part to get past. Your first goal, as a matter of fact, when you start your day, should not be to set leads, it should be to get past the value of the visit. Really to get past the introduction first, then the window problems, then the value of the visit. But if you break up your goals like that, if you break up your scripting like that, it becomes a lot more simple, to kind of look at the job in simple ways. So for example, whenever we come up with a funnel rate number, do you know what funnel rate means? Funnel rate is when, like, let's say, for example, I'm growing plants. Let's say that I'm growing weed let's say I'm growing weed. That's where I was going, but I was not sure if I was going to cross the threshold until you did. So that's fine. So let's say that I'm doing that. And let's say, for example, that let's say tomatoes. Okay. Let's say tomatoes. And I plant 10 tomato plants, and 7 of them start growing. Okay. So 30% have fallen off. And 5 of them actually get to the point where they're starting to grow tomatoes. And actually, at the end of it, only 3 of them grow full ripe tomatoes that can be farmed, that I can actually use, right? My funnel rate then is 30%. Okay, does that make sense? At the end of the line, but at each point, I can stop and see where in the process stuff fell off and how I can get better at stuff. So if you break down your script this way to introduction, window problems, value to visit, and then setting the appointment, then you can really quickly see, whether you're tracking it literally or not, you can really quickly see where you're falling off. If I'm falling off, 30% of my customers are falling off after the introduction, the people I talk to, then I have a problem. There's an issue with that. I'm doing something in the introduction that's causing me to lose a significant amount of customers. If I am, and I'm guessing this is accurate, losing over 50% of my customers for some people in the window problems or before the end of the window problems, then I'm really screwing something up in the window problems or in the introduction. But I know that for a fact. And so when you start to break it down this way, it becomes really easy to see where you need the work and where you need the help. Okay. And so the second note that I'm going to put down here is that funnel rate is an extremely important metric. For any business, it's an important metric. And you want to look at what you're doing as your own business in a way of, like, you're very responsible for your own production. You sort of operate autonomously from, I don't know if that's a word. It's a word. Right. Okay, good. From other people. And so you're responsible for your own production. You're responsible for your own cancellation rate, your own demo rate, all of these different things. You have more control than anybody else over them, right? And so funnel rate's a really important metric to find out where you're at and where you need help. My suggestion is that, again, if you track this, even if you're not literally tracking it, you're getting an understanding for it, then you want to be past the value to visit at least 85% of the time. Okay, 85% of the time. Now, it's easy to say, but how do we do that? Well, the introduction to me is pretty easy. When you're getting past the introduction, the easy part of the introduction is that you have to almost try to screw it up. Okay, you have to say things that are going to put the customer in a bad mental place where they want to get rid of you. Okay, a certain amount of customers are just going to come out and slam the door, and that's fine. That happens, or whatever. I'm counting them as 5% of the customers. Okay, that's maybe too much, maybe too little, whatever. But 5% of the customers are just gonna. That's probably a lot, but whatever. I'll say 5% of the customers. All the other customers, if you're losing any other percentage in the introduction, it's because you're saying something wrong that's rubbing them the wrong way. So here's an example. If I start off, good afternoon, my name is Paul Duffy, Mr. Jones. Great, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Andersen. Let's say, for example, the customer says to me at that point, no, I'm not Mr. Jones. And I kind of freak out. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, my notes must be wrong. Then I'm probably losing some customers right there. That's probably some of my fall off. Not a significant amount of it, but some of my fall off right there. Okay. No, confidently say, okay, I'm sorry, my notes must be wrong here. It's off county records. You must be pretty new to the property then. When did you move in? Great, you're right back where you want to be at. Okay, well, just remind you, I'm with Renewal by Andersen. We just did some work for your neighbor down the street. Congratulations on the new home. It's absolutely beautiful. You've done a great job so far with it. It looks like great buy. Where'd you move from? Whatever. You get into conversation that way. If you do it confidently, then you're not going to lose as much in the value of the visit. In the introduction, everything in your introduction should be 100% confidence. That's really it. You want to move the customer with your actions and with your words. So after that, so, Mr. Jones, great Mr. Jones, I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith right down the street on 123 Main Street. Point in the direction of, it doesn't fucking matter where you point. It really doesn't. I mean, point wherever you want. The customer's not gonna like check your work and, oh, no, that's, well,
I
that's-
always do that. I'm like, yo, we did a work from there. You're putting to the wrong place. You're actually
Yeah.
behind us.
well, that's a one-off. Either way, when you point, you're moving that customer physically with you. They're gonna pay attention to where you're pointing to the extent where you're exerting a little bit of control over the conversation. Okay. So actually point. You don't want to be stuck there in one spot like that, right? So back in 2012, I spoke at this summit meeting, and I remember, and I've told you guys about this before, because I had a huge I still have a huge fear of speaking in front of people. I hate it more than anything in the world. I get so much anxiety right before I start speaking, even in things like this, even with people that I know, I get so much anxiety for days ahead of time. When I said, oh, we're going to do this training on Friday or whatever, I texted that out, messaged that out. The anxiety started right then. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not kidding either. Like, I get extreme anxiety over it. And I still do. It's been years, but that one was the worst one ever. 450 people that probably make on average over $1 million a year. It scared the hell out of me. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing that I wanted to do less than that. I was hoping that the plane went down on the way there. I mean, I'm serious. I was like, I'm over that. I do not want to do this at all. And so I was told, your public speaking, you have to move around. So I get up there on the stage and in my, like, this is what's in my head is I need to move around. So I'm probably looking like a real weirdo. I'm probably like this. You know what I'm saying? I have no idea. I'm glad it wasn't taped, but everybody said I did a good job. I did not feel like I did a good job. I felt like I was doing things way too intentionally. When you're with a customer, though, you don't want to stand there like this neither. You got to be loose. You have to be able to, you're just having a conversation with somebody. If you're standing there freaking out, then and look, over time it gets easier. It's expected the first couple times you do this, maybe even the first couple times a day, you're gonna feel like that. I do now. If I go out there with somebody now, even though 13 years in the job, I still have that feeling for the first couple houses I know. It's extreme anxiety. I get anxiety that I'm with somebody else, that I'm training with somebody else. I get anxiety, the whole thing. Even if I'm not doing the door, the person I'm with is doing the door, I still get anxiety. You know what I'm saying? But after a couple of houses, I remember I've done this for years, and this is not that difficult. And I know it's easy. It gets easier over time. The anxiety to me is it's a growth process. It's just like another muscle to me. That's what it's become. It's like, if you're working out, certain muscles, right, you're expecting different results. And to me, when you force conversation, you're working out different muscles. It's just a different muscle that you're working out. So that's the way I look at it. But a level of comfortability is required to get past the introduction. Okay. So you're now in this part here where you pointed out that we just did a job for Mrs. Jones right down the street over on 123 Main Street. So it's important that you're actually pointing out to the place. It's important that you're using a job too. Don't just say we did some work in your area. Every company is doing that. The fact that we're using an actual customer, hey, we're doing some work right down the road on 123 Main Street, pretty informal. It's going to help out a lot. Okay. And the reason why I'm out here is that I noticed the script says, I noticed you're going to be replacing your windows soon, and I may be able to help. Now, here's the deal. If there's better options for you besides exactly that scripting, use them. I noticed that you had the original vinyl windows here. How long have you lived in the home? I noticed that you had some extreme rotting in the front of the home here. Now, how long have you lived in the home? And I always ask the question, how long have you lived in the home? It's so automatic to me because it gives me so much information. It makes the conversation so much easier. That to me, after they answer that question, I'm done with the introduction and I'm past that part. Now I'm in the window problems. But the answer to that question, how long have you lived in the home? It gives me so many different things. Number one, it gives me the ability to make a personal connection based on how long the customer's been there. So if they're new to the house, I love talking to people that just bought their house. It's my favorite set of customers. I'm extremely biased towards it because I believe those are more impulse people, especially if they're first-time homeowners. They're impulse people. They want to improve their home. The tough part is they don't want to buy anything or they're not in the position to buy anything. Luckily, that's not what I'm asking them to do, right? But I love talking to people that just moved in. That being said, my conversation is extremely different if they've been there for 30 years. It just is. Because they know more about their windows. They're going to have a different expectation in my knowledge, probably. They're probably a lot older than me. And so having the conversation is a little bit different than if I'm talking to a 32-year-old that just bought a house. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna adapt based on that. Now, either way, I don't put a lot of emphasis or time into the window problem conversation. That's a pretty known thing. I'm not saying that it's the wrong thing to do. If the customer is willing to have that conversation with me, I'm willing to have that conversation. That being said, I want total control over that conversation. I don't want to hand the customer control. Doesn't mean I don't ask some questions. Of course I do, but I have control over those questions. The first thing I'm going to do in the window problem conversation is point out what I see first. I'm going to utilize that first. And even if it's something that the customer wouldn't notice. So if there's not much else there, but I see that they have weep holes on their windows, then I'm pointing out the two little holes at the bottom of the windows where water is going to get caught inside, right? I'm going to point that out to them. I want total control over that conversation because the customer is going to be at the will of whatever I show them. They don't, I go into the conversation knowing I know more about that than the customer. I've gone over this before, the value of debate, right? If you, like for me, I would never get in a debate on something that I knew nothing about. It makes no sense for me to do that, right? I have no business doing that. I remember when I was a kid, when I was in 6th grade, having to do a debate about dog racing, greyhound racing. They were closing a greyhound track in Massachusetts, and the debate was, is it ethical or is it not ethical? In the 6th grade, kind of high level shit for the 6th grade, you know what I'm saying? And I remember you didn't get to pick your sides. You were given a side, okay? And I forget what side I was on, but I didn't agree with the side I was on. It was extremely difficult. So what I had to do is I had to be extremely knowledgeable on the process, right? And then I had to lie. I mean, that's what I had to do, right? I had to make it sound better than it was, right? I think I was on the side of not closing it down or something like that. And these dogs were treated pretty poorly. And I had to make that seem better than it was in the 6th grade. It's kind of a horrible thing to do to a 6th grader, you know? But I remember doing it. I remember at the end of it doing it. I remember, feeling a level of accomplishment getting through the conversation. And what I won the conversation based on was the fact that I had more information than the people that were on the other side from me, because I definitely did not have the moral backing in the conversation. It was pretty clear that there was a lot of, at least in this place, a lot of bad stuff that went on. And I had to really make that look a lot better than it was. You know what I'm saying? A lot of dogs being killed, put down for nothing. And as a 6th grader, I had to morally justify that, which is difficult to do. But it taught me a lot, and I never forgot those lessons. You can have any conversation from any side as long as you have a good understanding of what you're talking about, right? And so when you go up to a customer's house, the biggest, most important thing that you understand is that you have more knowledge, bless you, you have more knowledge about their home than they do. And you definitely have more knowledge of your script than they do. And so you have control of the process and of the conversation. So if I go up to a customer's house, assuming that I'm not lying or that I'm doing a good job, I'm going to point out the issues. They can't tell me no. I'm not asking them a question about whether or not the windows are warping. That's dumb. Why would I do that? I can see that they're warping. I'm not going to ask them. I'm just going to say, your windows are warping. Look, right there, your window's warping right there. It's kind of stupid for me to say, are you having that problem? Where are you having that problem? On the front or the back of your home? No, I can see it's right on the front. It's right there. Why not just point it out? It makes no sense to ask that question. Now, I might tell them, there's no way, Mr. Jones, you have windows like that. There's no way you're not going to experience drafts. Just about what level of drafts you're experiencing. So do you feel like cold all the time or just when you get up to the windows right there? The confidence there, you're definitely going to be feeling it. You can't tell me no. They might say they don't feel drafts. I'm not going to rebuttal them. I'm just going to tell them, oh, it's great that you don't feel that. You probably don't get very close to the windows very often. And then I'm going to move on. I'm not going to give them any level of control. I'm not going to rebuttal something that's not an objection. It makes no sense for me to do that, right? And I'm going to make it past every window problem conversation, because no matter what, even if the person's stuck on I have no problems, nothing's an issue or nothing, I'm not going to argue with them for 20 minutes about it and then leave. No, I'm going to move on. Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you what, there's people that know a lot more about this than you or I. I'll have somebody come out. They'll check them out for you. They'll test the energy efficiency. They'll see what kind of problems you're having. They have all kinds of tools. And then they'll leave you with a free price quote if you need the windows, essentially. I don't say exactly that. Obviously, I'm going through a script, but that's the point I'm trying to get across to the customer. Okay. Either way, no matter what the situation is, they could be like, no, my windows are perfect. They're absolutely perfect. I don't want anything. I'm at least going to get to that point. The customer doesn't know why I'm there until I get to that point. So what's the purpose of my job if I can't at least communicate that? How can a customer say no to me if they don't know why I'm there? And the only person that controls that is me. The only level of control they have over that is if they close the door. I'm not just going to stand there and knock repeatedly until they open it again, obviously, right? That's the only level of control the customer has over that. And, when Andrew talks about motivation and confidence, these are the things that are important, motivation and confidence when you're moving through this part of the script. Okay. And I'm not going to piss a customer off. If a customer tells me to leave, I'm not going to be like, no, you have window problems. I'm not leaving. Of course I'm going to leave. Okay. But I don't have many customers telling me to leave. I can't remember the last time a customer told me to leave their property. It doesn't get there because the conversation I'm having with them is a conversation. It's very comfortable. It's not a pitch really. It's just a conversation, And the way that I'm achieving that is I'm not rebuttaling the person needlessly when I don't have to. I meant it the other day when I said it, and I said it in Altoona. My number one rebuttal is no doubt. That's it. That's if the customer says anything to me and a point that I'm not controlling. Okay, so my control points are, may I make a suggestion? And does that sound helpful? Those are the two biggest points where I have control over it. And I'm asking the customer for their opinion to an extent. Other places, I'm not asking for your opinion. I don't want your opinion. It's fine. Yeah, I don't need it. Right. So if I say, where are you experiencing drafts from, on the front of your home or your back of your home? The customer goes, yeah, honestly, they're not that bad. I'm really not interested right now. No doubt. Just moving on. That's it. I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to answer back with a rebuttal. It doesn't make any sense. A rebuttal to what? I didn't ask them if they were interested at that point, right? When I say, may I make a suggestion? I control the narrative more. May I make a suggestion? They're going to say yes, typically, right? And they might say, yeah, but I'm not interested in Windows. And fine, I'll entertain that a little bit, not a lot. No, of course you're not, sir. No, all I would do, sir, is just have somebody come out just to check the windows out to see if there's even any problems here, what kind of problems you're experiencing. And if we can't be a service to you, we'll just recommend someone else who can. But if we can help you, so on and so forth, right? So that level of control that you have, the level of comfortability, the customer reads that. They understand that. And so it's going to affect that customer in a positive way. Okay. Any questions on that? Now, I know for some people, it's tough to come off of rebuttals and stuff like that. And I understand that. I know it's tough to come off the idea that you have to have this really kind of rough, in some cases, interactions with customers. You don't have to have any complaints. You don't have to be aggressive. You have to be assertive in the conversation, of course, but you don't have to be aggressive. You have to be comfortable. And that's what makes the job fun, is being comfortable. The job is not fun if you feel like you're arguing with people half the day. That's not a fun job. It doesn't need to be that way. I can't remember the last argument I was in with a customer at all. And so you shouldn't have to do that. That's not what the job calls for. Now, back when I first started, I didn't understand this level of comfortability. When I first started, we didn't give the customer a chance to object. So all of the objections came out at the very end of the pitch when I first started. Okay. The script went like this. I knock on the door. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. We didn't have their name at that point. So I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for one of your neighbors. And I want to ask you, have you ever heard of Anderson before? We'd ask that question. And they would usually say yes. We ask how old their windows are too. And they would tell us whatever they felt. And then I'd say, okay, great. Well, Anderson windows are the best windows you can have for your home. And then I would filibuster them with all these facts about Anderson that nobody gave a shit about at all. Okay. So we have a Fibrex material. It's a strong composite of wood and vinyl, has the strengths of both, the weaknesses neither. We have a true scene insect screen, which is virtually invisible, lasts more sunlight and pressure, and while keeping even the smallest of insects up. We have a, I don't even know, dude. We have a Lowy Smart Sun glass that will save you up to 56% of your energy bills in the wintertime and 76% in the wintertime and the summertime. Whatever it was, there was like 4 or 5 different facts that nobody would listen to that you'd have to say. And then you would go directly into, now what I'm going to do, what I would like to do is have somebody come up, take a look at your windows, or no, we'd say Anderson's going to be in your neighborhood giving out free price quotes at a good 1 full year. We're also offering some huge neighborhood promotions. Right now we're offering X, Y, and Z. And so we'll have somebody come out, take a look at your windows and see how we can help. And then we didn't have their name. So we'd say, what time of day works best for you or something like that. I don't even know. But all that would come up. And then the customer would be asked, you want to do this basically. And then they would object like 80 times. That's an argument. They'd say not interested. You'd say your rebuttal. You'd pause, you'd wait for them to say not interested again, you'd say your rebuttal. You'd pause, you'd wait for them to say can't afford it, and then you'd say your rebuttal. And it would go back and forth like that. That's an argument. An argument is going back and forth like that. And so at the end, the customer was forced into a decision. Do they want to sit there and hear you for another 5 minutes? Do they want to slam the door? They want to just set an appointment and claim mercy, and then that's it. That was it. And it wasn't good. I mean, our average amount of demos per week was 3. 3 was the average. Like, you were doing well if you got 3 demos a week. It was bad. It was not good at all. The only people that succeeded in that environment were people that changed the system, not just the script, the system, the way that we did things. And that's what I did, is I just changed the system, you know, and it wasn't a good, comfortable feeling. With this script and system, you don't need to change the system. You don't. You got to embrace the system. The fact that you want the customer to speak to you and you want them to object, because objections change over time. The customer is going to start off with not interested. They're not going to end there. They're going to move to something that's more palatable for you. Can't afford this right now. Just did my roof. Got 2 kids in college. Had to buy a new car, whatever. They're going to move to stuff that makes more sense for the conversation. Reasonable things that actually are true. And then you can work off of that. It's not just not interested, rebuttal. Not interested, rebuttal. Can't afford it, rebuttal. Right? Now, what this enables you to do, on top of the fact that you're a lot more comfortable, you don't have to worry about where you're at in the conversation, you don't have to worry about arguing with the customer, is it allows you to save your rebuttals. So the benefit of this is that by the time I get down to, I have your last name is Jones, what's your first? I might have rebutted once. I probably haven't even rebutted yet, but I've gotten through that part 90, 85, whatever % of the time. A lot of percentage of the time I've gotten through that part without really having to give the customer a rebuttal. Now I have all of this ammunition left for if I have to get into the weeds with the customer, if I have to go back and forth with them a little bit and whatnot. It gets a lot easier for me to have stuff to say because I haven't said it all before already, right? And so there's a benefit to that. I have my scripting left. I can go back to my value to visit if I have to, right? These things are easy. The only downside of this system, the only downside of doing this is that you do have some customers that will just say yes. And we've all had people like that, right? You know they're not interested. You can tell they're not interested, but they just keep saying yes. Over, oh yeah, yep, sure, yep, no problem, yep. My suggestion with people like that is go back over the value to visit right before you get on the phone with the office. Very simple. So just to remind you, Mr. Jones, when we come out here soon, we're just going to go over your options, answer any questions that you have, and then we're going to leave you with a free price quote that's good for 1 full year. Okay, now I'm going to get the office on the phone. It will just take a second. Just go through it again with them, remind them of that. That way, if anything is going to come up, it comes up right there before you get on the phone with the office, and then you can deal with it. Any questions on that? Okay. Okay. So to summarize, guys, window problems are extremely important. There's 2 parts to the window problems, right? We have the first part, and then we have the part where it's a more easy conversation, where we're already setting the appointment. Okay. Utilize that second part for the window problems. Go through what you can see. Go through the major pain points that are going to actually affect the appointment, and then sum it up at the end by getting through the rest of the window problems. If you haven't talked about them being difficult to open and close, ask them if they're difficult to open and close. You can ask yes or no questions a lot more in the second part of the window problems because you're already at the appointment. It's now more of a amicable conversation. You know what I'm saying? You both want to have the conversation at that point. It's fine. So there's 2 parts to that, though. Utilize it. That's where your lead quality is going to come from. Okay. I want to point out that, you know, Ryan's last, and I know I've said his name now 4 times in here. He's done a great job. His last month, okay, was his first month here. He had 50 set appointments. Okay. He had a 96% demo rate, a 96% demo rate and 43% sales close rate. Okay. 188 grand in sales. Okay. So the point is that you don't have to sacrifice lead quality for lead quantity. You can have lead quantity and still have very good lead quality. 1 no demo or not home was all that was there. That's it. Everything else is perfect. Okay. You don't have to sacrifice. And here's the deal. When you first start, Ryan and I were talking about what he can do to get better. I said, what's changed over the last week, let's say? He said, studying the script. He would come in here every single day and study the script. Not what he wanted the script to be. Not what he felt like the script should be in his back of his mind. He would study the script every day, the script, right? Come in very early and study that. So the script will do it, guys. That will fix whatever issues you're going through. And then comfortability is the second part. Okay, being comfortable in your job is the second part. It's not fun if you're uncomfortable all day. You don't have to do that. You're just having conversations with people. Break it down to that. Okay. It doesn't need to be difficult. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, cool. 12:47 right now, so we still got a little bit of time to spare. So you guys get out there and let's make today a record day. For tomorrow, guys, it's Saturday. We're gonna have a lot of incentives for people that want to go out. And I want to remind you guys that on Monday we have that future leaders training at 10:30 to 12. If you're interested in growing in this department, then be there at 10:30. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Monday.
Monday, 10:30. Yeah, let's give it up for you guys. Come on.